Welcome back to the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. I'm Ryan Osborne, and I am joined by the voice of the Fullerton College Hornets, Mark Pavlovich. Mark, usually this is about the time where we say, hey, we're at the halfway point, the bye week. Kind of a time to look back at the first 5 weeks of the season and say, what happened, what went wrong, what went right. But when you look at this Fullerton Hornet season, it started off weird, and frankly, it's kind of continued the same way.
Well, when you look at the Hornets, and we just got done doing an El Camino game a week ago, and I think when we did that broadcast, which was radio only, Corey Nealon really hit it on the head talking about the Fullerton College Hornets. He said they have no identity. And that's, I think, the problem right now is there is no identity on that team. Ryan, you've been around enough. You've been out there for the Hornet games. I'll look at you. Are they a passing team or are they a running team? Corey and I can't figure out which they are, and we're not quite sure if they know who they are. And that's why we think they're at the point they're at right now, where they're one game over 500.
Well, Mark, I think when you and Corey talk about them not having that identity thus far yet, I think you guys are right. They can't decide which game going into it, if they're a running team or if they're a passing team. From my perspective, it looks like they are a passing team who tries to use the run to open things up. But then again, you look at some opportunities that they had the last couple of weeks, specifically against El Camino and also College of the Canyons. All of a sudden, you look at it and you say, well, a couple guys rattle off some big runs, but then they go back to the pass. So it's kind of been a confusing start for this Hornet offense.
Yeah, and it really is. And of course, I'm old school, and people will pick on me for saying this. I miss the run game. I think you saw El Camino against a very stout Brian Crooks defense. Hey, they're a running team. That's what their stats showed. They ran against the Hornets, and they used the run against the Hornets to set up the pass, and eventually it worked for them to win the football game. I think the biggest question is for both of us, though, because you're down there with one of the other teams that we cover on our sister station, that I think the showdown after bye week is going to come between the two schools we're both connected with, Golden West College and Fullerton College. I think one of us is going to be really happy at the end of the season, and one of us is going to say, another bowl game, how exciting. You've been around the Golden West College team. Nick Mitchell, for all of us here at sportsnetusa.net, we love you. We have for the decade we've been around you. Nick's got a team this year, and if you're Fullerton College, you better take care of business, because I think it comes down to that game, who makes the playoff and who goes to a bowl game.
Well, Mark, I was talking with the voice of the Golden West Rustlers, Rashawn Haylock, the other day, and talking to him, and I said, hey, you know, what sets this team apart from the teams that you've seen in the last 10 years or so? And he said, the number one thing, their quarterbacking play this year. Ben Retzlaff has been fantastic for them, and he has led the charge, especially in that win over top of Riverside, number one Riverside at the time, as he had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and also ran for a score. So when you look at the quarterback play for Golden West, you look at their offense and you say, they are a passing team. Do they get the run going? Yes, but only after they establish the pass early on. So if you're talking about Golden West and Fullerton later on this year, that's one thing that Fullerton has to be able to watch out for, especially Brian Crook's defense going into the back half of the year, is big-time quarterback play from 3 of the next 4 teams that they play.
Yeah, and the other thing that you've got to look at is receivers that really go out and get the ball. In the El Camino game, when it was one-on-one, the matchups did favor El Camino every once in a while out there. And so that's the thing that you look at too. And if you're the Hornets again, I really am going to go back to it. Hey, find that identity, beat the heck out of the other teams with that identity. And when it comes down to playing Golden West, well, it's going to be a duel in the booth with you and Rashawn Haylock on one side, Corey Nealon and I on the other side, Joseph Pavlenko in the middle trying to referee everything with Ed Ford. And, you know, I don't know. Right now I'm going to go with the old guys against the young guys, because once a Hornet, always a Hornet, but we'll see what happens when that game matches up. Bye week, there's still a lot of football for this Hornet football team. They've got to go through conference undefeated if they want to make the playoffs.
And that's one of the big things, is that coming up for the Hornets, they've got two of their next three opponents who are also vying to be in the top half of that table in terms of playoff play or trying to get into the playoffs in the coming second half of the season. One team specifically that stands out to me, Mark, is, I believe in a couple of weeks, Southwestern. Fullerton doesn't play it up here. They have to go down to Southwestern for the second straight time that they, or excuse me, not the second straight time, but the second time in the last 3 years when they play Southwestern. That's a team that just in 2019 beat Fullerton because of their running attack. They beat Fullerton because they were able to use their identity and use it to their strength. They ended up just missing out on the playoffs in 2019, but this is a team in Southwestern that, again, has the opportunity and the ability to beat big teams.
Well, I'm going to go down and be Brian Crooks right now. This Fullerton team's going to win for one reason, and I'm stealing from a movie. You've got to have heart. You've got to really want to be a Hornet. You've got to want to be a Hornet champion because of the heritage of this school. If the players don't want to be that, I hope they get a bowl game. And I'm going to be like with Brian Crooks. You buy into being a Hornet. You came here to be a Hornet. You came here to be a champion. If they can't do that, if they can't get that mentality, maybe I'm wrong on saying it'll come down between them and Golden West at the end of the season.
Well, one thing, if you want to talk about the players, you can see who has been able to make improvements going from week number 1 and in training camp all the way up until this last week against El Camino. You look at the linebacking core, and it seems like with every week they start improving. And we talked to Brian Crooks about it. We talked about his linebacking core, and he says, you know what? Those 3 guys are like having field generals, and you'll see as the season progresses, they get even smarter, they add more to their personal repertoire, and they're able to pick up things even better than what you would see from the average linebacker across the CCCAA. So when you look at the linebacking core, that's one group that has truly improved week after week after week.
Yeah, and the offensive line has been good. Unfortunately, last week when El Camino sold out, they sold out defensively, and the offensive line, every once in a while, couldn't find that drip in the pipe where it was happening, and they ended up putting a lot of pressure on our quarterbacks that were out there. So the offensive line, which has improved, took a little stutter step backwards. They need to get back on track, and if they do, I'm going to put a lot of faith. And if you hand off the ball to that bowling ball in the backfield and let him run up and get you 4, get you 4, get you 4, get you 4, throw out into the flat, get that crossing pattern in the middle of the field, you might make it through conference undefeated.
One thing that's interesting when you mention Brandon Rankins, it seems he consistently, like you mentioned, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, he will rattle off those runs. And then all of a sudden, Fullerton has found themselves a secondary back in Ryan Black, who has that explosive play ability. So when you look at the running back core for Fullerton College coming up, Mark, they have the opportunity to be that X factor.
Yeah, they really do, and it's going to come down there. And on the defensive side, Brian Crooks always finds a way to reestablish his defense. Special teams needs to pick it up just a little. We had a few missed field goals in that El Camino game. That's going to be an aspect of it. And when we play Golden West, you know, you talked about them. I love their receivers. Watching the game against Long Beach City College that we saw. They got big receivers. They know how to run patterns. And when they catch the football, they make it into the end zone. So, you know, Phil Austin, your defensive backs are going to have to step up as the conference goes. I guess I picked on everybody today. Corey Nalen, you're going to be safe. You only said they didn't have an identity. I looked at everybody else and said, hey, we need to step it up. But that's the way this season seems to be going for this Hornet team.
Well, Mark, considering that you've got a few games coming up that are going to be a true test, is there one game specifically in this conference play that will stand out to you to be that measuring stick?
Yeah, this next Thursday night. I really do. I mean, you came off a beating. You need to answer the beating. And, you know, I don't care what the quality of the team is that you're playing. If you barely win the game and you should have put the snide on them defensively and scored 70 points, that's what everybody's going to look at. If they're a quality team and you should just beat them and that's what you do, everybody's going to look at it. I think attitude is if I play a lesser opponent, I should beat the living crud out of them. This is a sport, and sport is no mercy when you play an opponent. That's why I have problems with mercy rules and softball and everything else. And that's what it's all about. And this Hornet team has been able to do that in the past. And I think Coach Garrett, Coach Crooks, and the rest of the cast around him need to instill that in their players. And if you go through conference and you beat the living bejesus out of everybody, more power to you. And that's what they need to do, because when they hit the playoffs, they're going to play College of the Canyons again. They're going to play Ventura again. They might play Riverside. You've been there in the playoffs. We'll see. Ryan, you've been around too long against this Hornet team and have talked to too many coaches. It's attitude. And the attitude needs to become a winning attitude now here at Fullerton College.
So we'll see what Fullerton is able to do. Again, they play October 14th. That's a Thursday for the Fullerton College Hornets. So before we continue here with the Coaches Show, we're going to give you a quick recap on what happened this last Saturday against El Camino, and then we've got an appearance with Perry Webster. So once again, we get a chance to take a look at what happened on Saturday between Fullerton and El Camino. For Fullerton, they were looking for a chance to improve their record to 4-1, and again, looking for their third win of the season that they were able to play out. On the other side, for El Camino, they were trying to get their first win over Fullerton College in quite some time. As we get set to take a look at the highlights, on Saturday, things were a little different for the broadcast team for Fullerton College. Everything was audio only. As we get set to see the highlights here in just a couple of moments, you'll hear the voices of Corey Nalen and Mark Pavlovich. So, let's get right to the highlights. It starts off in the first quarter, just about 5 minutes in. Fullerton College would get on the board, and that would be thanks to Chandler Galban hooking up for a 21-yard pass to Braden Huffman.
And Galban puts it right there. Huffman gets a first down. First down and 10 at the 20. Byers comes up far side of the field. Again, look for him. He's got great hands. Get a little motion, not called there. Middle of the field, all alone in the corner. Touchdown, Fullerton College. Huffman's got a touchdown.
21 yards from Galban to Huffman, the first touchdown pass for the Hornet quarterbacks this season. 4 games in, and they're up 6-0.
After that touchdown pass, just about 3 minutes later, Brandon Rankins would add to the Fullerton lead.
And Sherrod Green is the left guard.
Huffman goes to the far side. Byers comes down to the near side. Edwards still at quarterback. Hands it off to Brandon Rankins. Touchdown, Fullerton College.
Number 7 for Brandon Rankins. Anything inside the 5-yard line, you can't tackle him. Just too strong.
El Camino in the first half got their first points of the game with 12:51 left to go in the second quarter thanks to Damani Sanchez's big-time play.
So Guerra in there, running back right now. Braden Jordan. Jordan throws a little block at the angle, throw it up in the middle of the field. All by himself, Corey Nalen, is Sanchez, who will just walk his way into the end zone.
So one of the big things for Fullerton College this entire season is how often they were able to respond as soon as their opponent gets on the board. It's something that we've seen as a continual trend all throughout 2021, and we saw it in 2019 as well. That would be a thread that would continue on Saturday against El Camino, as just moments later, it would be Galban once again with a big-time touchdown pass.
Galban comes back out. Gain of 7 on the play. Second down and 3, just short of the 30. Galban goes back, has excellent perception, goes down the middle of the field, puts it on the money. Touchdown, Fullerton College. Corey, I'm going to let you call that because that was one of the prettier pass plays we have seen all year long.
Christopher Koontz was in the seam on the right hash mark. He does a real skinny post, stays on the seam and gets to that X at the 35-yard line.
But one big thing for El Camino that was consistent all throughout the weekend, as soon as you thought that Fullerton College got in control, El Camino would come right back with the score, and they do that with 6:22 remaining in the second quarter.
Nick Hurtado cleans it up.
Hole opens big. Touchdown, Warriors.
Time winding down in the first half of play. Trey Edwards has used his legs all season long to pick up first downs and touchdowns, and he'd do exactly that with less than a minute 40 on the clock.
Brandon Rankins comes back in the game. 1st and goal now at the 6. Trey Edwards keeps it himself, puts his head down. Touchdown, Fullerton College. 1:39 to go. Trey Edwards gets his way back into the end zone.
The first half wouldn't stop the scoring there, as El Camino would get themselves back on the board oh so quickly. Just about 45 seconds later, El Camino back on the board, 23 yards from Guerra to Jordan.
And the defense of Brian Crooks needs to do something. Middle of the field, touchdown Corey Nealon. You couldn't have done that any easier if you were saying, let's play flag football. As right there, Brandon Jordan comes out of the backfield, finds the rush, goes by it, stands alone on the curb, gets that loaf of bread thrown to him, then goes home and makes a bologna sandwich.
After a third quarter that went scoreless between two sides, El Camino found themselves back on the board in the fourth quarter. Down by 7, 28-21. They got themselves into the end zone once again thanks to Dylan Guerra, who ends up with another 23-yard touchdown pass, this time to Dion Moore, to even it up at 28-28.
So now the Warriors are knocking on the door at the 23. Guerra looks things over.
Last time they got in this situation, Brian Crooks came with an all-out blitz, burned him up the middle. We'll see here.
Sanchez to the far side of the field. Guerra says, I'm going to the near side of the field. Pushing back and forth. Touchdown, Warriors.
And all of a sudden, Fullerton wasn't able to capitalize with their ensuing possession, and El Camino said, you know what? We see it. We're going to take advantage. Dion Moore, 14 yards from Dylan Guerra, and all of a sudden, Fullerton College now trailed it 35-28. And that is where the score would end. Fullerton would not be able to get back on the board, and it would be a final of 35-28. The Fullerton College Hornets lose their second game of the season to bring them to 3-2. Don't forget that coming up for the Hornets, it's Thursday. That's their next game, as the Fullerton College Hornets get set to take on San Bernardino Valley in a matchup, again, that's on Thursday night, not Saturday. Well, we're going to switch things up, and we're going to go over to basketball, where head coach Perry Webster joins us on the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. So I'm here with head coach Perry Webster of the men's basketball team here at Fullerton College. And Perry, you know, you've been here for quite some time now here at Fullerton. It's no longer that first year, that second year. What defines the Perry Webster era to this point?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I would just say a bunch of really good players and a bunch of really good kids that have bought into a culture and a program. We've had good assistant coaches along the way that have really catapulted us, and we've been steady. We've had a steady stream of success, and I think that just comes from everyday work ethic amongst the staff and everyday work ethic amongst the players, and those players choosing to be part of a program and part of a culture and being part of a team has really, I think, been the staple of what we've done in my first 5 years here.
One thing that you mentioned when you talk about the culture that is Perry Webster's program, we talk about it all the time. You can't play defense, you can't play for Perry Webster. How hard is that to instill to someone who just joins your program?
It's hard. We're in the midst of that right now in practice, and instilling those non-negotiables and making sure guys understand that they got to work hard and play hard every possession on the defensive end, and understanding there's a rhyme to it all too. Understanding that people expect you to be in a certain position on both ends, and you got to be in that position. If you're not, you're letting our team down, and we're strong because we have 5 solid guys on the floor at once, and that's on the offensive end and defensive end. So if you got a weak link on the defensive end, you're going to struggle as a team to defend. So every guy knows that he's got to do his part, and that's why we've been successful.
One thing that you mentioned when you mentioned 5 different guys on the floor who can play offensively and defensively at the same time, in watching you be a coach for the last 5 years, you've never been afraid to say, you know what, it's crunch time, yeah, but this starter isn't performing on the defensive end. He's coming and going off the bench. We're bringing someone else in there who's going to actually go out there and, play defense the way that you want him to. Is that something that you decided early on that you were going to be that type of coach?
Well, I think you got to play to win. I mean, I think you got to play to win, and guys are going to play well at certain times, and guys are not going to play well at certain times. And the college basketball season is a long season. It's 28 regular season games over a span of 3.5 months, and then if you're good, you're in the playoffs, and you're playing another month. So there's going to be different guys that are helping you and hurting you at different times of the season. And as a head coach, in order to keep guys practicing hard and doing the right things every day, you got to give them their chances when other guys are struggling. So, I think this team that we have this year has a lot of depth, and I think that it's going to be a large rotation with a lot of different guys that help us at a lot of different times in the season.
Coach, how do you highlight the skill sets of different players? I mean, in the past you've had guys like Richardson, like Fox, like Coleman II. How do you highlight those skills in a brand new year?
Yeah, I think you have to spend time to find out kind of who your go-to guys are. I think in years past, maybe more than this year, I've had pretty clear clarity on it early on to know who are the guys that you're going to go to and want the ball in their hands late in the game, and you kind of try to set up and have plays and have specials and make sure that your team understands that too, making sure that you're clear with the rest of the guys that, hey, I want the guy and with the ball in his hands in this spot at this time, and you need to make sure we execute that and do that. I think getting guys to believe in winning and believing in it, different nights it's different guys' turn, kind of helps us do that and be successful that way.
In your years of coaching or even playing, have you ever had an instance where you've seen one guy go, you know what, I'm calling my own number on this?
Yeah, I've seen that. You fight that, especially early on in practice each season. You have to get them to understand that you can't just break off and do your own thing. With that being said, I mean, some guys are talented, and it's not equal. And you as a coach have to do your best to make sure a guy who maybe feels or knows he can do it on his own sometimes still feels that he can have that creativity within your offense and within your flow to be able to break off and go make plays. There's a fine line between being timid and being aggressive. So we want our guys to be aggressive, just with the thought of making the right play.
When you look at the Orange Empire Conference this season, one thing you've always mentioned is that if you guys play your game, you'll be just fine. But is there one team in the conference that you're looking at that could be a big-time factor later on?
Yeah, you just don't know that much about it this early in the year. I know Riverside's going to be really good. They return several players from a good team a couple years ago. Santiago is going to be good. They returned some guys from a good team a couple years ago. I saw Irvine Valley in the showcase. They look big and physical. There's a new coach at Saddleback. We'll see what he does. He looked like he had a talented roster. But you just don't know. You just don't know where you're at. And you may look good right now, or you may look bad right now. But like I said earlier, it's a long season. The meat of the conference plays in January and February. So whoever you are right now doesn't really matter. It matters who you are then.
When you mention those teams like a Saddleback, who a few years ago you had to fight just to get into the state playoff because it was that big-time rivalry, is there any other rivalry that has started to develop over the last couple of years?
We like to sell our guys on the belief that everybody's a rival because we believe when people come into our gym, they see us as a rival. We've established ourselves over the last 5 years as the premier junior college to play in this area, in the Orange County area, Los Angeles area, Riverside area. We've had the most success out of everybody. So we believe that teams come into our gym, see us as a big dog, and they're trying to get us, and we're their Super Bowl. So if we don't act like each one of them are our Super Bowl, then we're going to get beat. So there's rivalries here, there's rivalries there, but it really doesn't matter. Come to play every night for 40 minutes.
Coach, a few years back, I talked to you on the Coach's Show after your championship win, and I said you were able to pick up your son in your arms, celebrate with him, celebrate with your family. How cool is it to be able to see your family on the sideline cheering you on while you're head coaching?
Yeah, just really blessed. Over the last 18 months with the COVID deal and being at home, gave me great perspective on what a good life I really do have. I get to live in a beautiful area. I get to work on a great campus. I get to coach and do something I'm passionate about. and then I get to go home and spend time with the people that I love and I care about. And I'm very lucky. I'm lucky to have a wonderful wife, and I'm lucky to have 3 healthy children. And I want to make sure that I do my best every day to express to everybody my gratitude and how lucky I really am to be living this quality of a life, and to keep giving my best to my players and to my family, because I'm lucky to be here.
Coach, when you mention your wife, she herself is a coach at the Division I level, also having some success as well and championships under her belt. Do you guys push each other for that friendly competition in-house?
No, we're cheering each other on. You know, that's the biggest thing. It's we bounce ideas off each other too, like you wouldn't believe. Stacy sees things differently than I do, and I like to get her point of view, and I see things differently than she does, and she likes to get my point of view. But no, we're cheering each other on. We're each other's biggest fans. You know, my wife is really a special woman, and you know, she's out there right now coaching, and she's got a baby on her. And she's out there doing her job and holding it down for those women within her program. And I can't imagine what those women think of her with the way that she represents herself and our family every day. So she makes me very proud.
Coach, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Once again, we'd like to thank Perry Webster for joining us on the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. One thing about Perry is he has always been very welcoming to us, as long as he has been a part of this program. When you take a look at his team, his first couple of games are going to be in November. November the 1st against LA Trade Tech. Then they go up to the Santa Monica College Tournament, and they take on San Bernardino Valley on Thursday the 4th. So for Fullerton, they've still got a little bit of time to prepare before they end up going up and taking on other teams from across Southern California. That first time that they have a homestand will end up being Wednesday the 17th against Saracoso, in addition to facing Santa Monica at home as well. One big matchup to watch for, San Diego City, Saturday the 27th of November. That will be on the road. So if you want to keep up to date with Coach Perry Webster and his entire squad and his team and how they're able to fare throughout the state of California, stay tuned to the Fullerton Hornets webpage and also the Coaches Show as we bring you updates all season long. So once again, we want to thank Perry Webster for joining us here on the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. Again, I'm Ryan Osborne, joined by the voice of the Hornets, Mark Pavlovich. And Mark, when you look at how things are measuring up for Fullerton basketball, Fullerton football, we've got an exciting few weeks coming up.
Yeah, we do. And did you know that the gentleman you just interviewed, his name is Perry D. Webster, because the D stands for defense. And I really enjoyed the interview you had with him. I mean, Perry brings a lot of insight to what this basketball program is all about, what it meant to him, which was great in the interview. And also, you got a little family flavor in there at the end of that interview. A lot of things people don't know. His wife is a prolific soccer coach over at Cal State University, Fullerton, your alma mater.
Absolutely, and she not only is a prolific soccer coach, she has been named one of the best in the entire Big West Conference. And I've had the opportunity to talk to her and also to talk to Perry at those games, because Perry, one thing that people don't realize is when his wife is coaching, he goes out there not just to support, but he goes out there, brings the kids and says, hey, mom has the opportunity to have a lot of success, let's go out and support her. Stacy, his wife, does the exact same thing here at Fullerton College. They come out and they support Perry. In either way, both of them are able to go out and support each other with what they do. And it's been fun to be able to talk to Perry Webster from the time that he was hired here at Fullerton as a brand new coach, him saying, you know what, I would like to establish an identity. I would like to find what that identity is going to be here on campus. I have an idea of it, but let's see if I can institute it. 5 years later, oh, not only does he have an identity, he has an era.
Yeah, I mean, and he's a heck of a nice young man, too. Let's not put that past. And a great educator. I should have gotten that out right, Perry. Educator that we talk about here. Ryan, it's been a ball. Thanks for having me back here on the Coaches Show. You know, I mean, being bye week means that we say goodbye. Oh, wait a minute. There's no Ray Baker or, I'm sorry. Bye, Corey. On that, maybe a one. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's always Ryan and the great coaches here at Fullerton College here on the Coaches Show. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a ball.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate you joining us. So once again, we want to thank Perry Webster and thank the voice of the Fullerton College Hornets, Mark Pavlovich. I'm Ryan Osborne, thanking you for joining us. You've been watching The Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK.